got in our two vehicles. Our F-150 is here and our flood car is here. We're gonna get these things unloaded and see what the damage is. All right, so Eddie we had to literally jack up the back of the Colorado. And we had to pull the truck in, shoot the Colorado up the frame rack, and there's not enough room to cut it. So bring the Colorado down, jack it up, kick the back end around, back it this way. It is a nightmare to get these in here and on the frame racks when they don't run. And I'll show you, this thing is just crushed. So next step is going to be for us to try to push it forward, and then I'm literally going to have to use the frame rack to inch by inch by inch by inch get this thing up on the rack. All right, so we got our truck on the frame rack, and as you can tell, that was not fun. It's literally just inching it little by little by little by little, using the towers on the frame machine to pull it up. That's how you get a dead vehicle on the frame rack. I didn't want to try to crank it. I don't think it will crank. We messed with it a little bit yesterday for like literally 30 seconds whenever it come in on the truck, and it didn't turn over then. So instead of trying to troubleshoot why it won't turn over, because it could just be a blown fuse or it could be cut wiring. I mean, you don't know when you have an impact this hard. It was easier just to pull it up on the frame rack and get into it. So we're gonna dive right in. We're not gonna go into a ton of details on this. This is not gonna be a 10-part series or nothing like that. But some people have showed interest in this, doing this. So we are going to just cover this as brief as possible without still leaving out the meat of the message, I guess you can say. But it's not gonna be a how-to tutorial, anything. I guess we'll just highlight the journey of putting this truck back together on the way to pay for our free motor. Now, one interesting thing about this truck is if we open the doors, let me show you something, is that no airbags deployed in this thing at all. So it took this hard of a hit and no airbags deployed. Fender went back into the door, so we got to straighten our door. We got some body work to do, and it buckled all the way up into here back. I'm gonna get all this peeled back, and then I'll show y'all exactly what all it damaged. But I know that already looking at it from yesterday that it is up here into the windshield wiper cowl. So you see right there. But we'll get all this taken off. We're gonna start just peeling this back piece by piece. The cool thing is what I was gambling on with this is I was hoping that it took a clean hit and just cut right across the top of the frame rails and didn't take a lick to the frame rails, because then you have absolutely no frame damage. So this don't have frame damage. Now, obviously our main core support is completely trash, but we have a parts truck, so we'll cut this one off and section it. We'll probably cut it over there somewhere and then bolt it there and all that good stuff, and I'll very briefly touch on that when we get there. But we're gonna just start untangling this mess this afternoon, getting wrecked parts off of here and getting these chains, and just start trying to pull some of this back out so we can get the radiator, header panel, all that stuff out. And then we want to actually crank the truck and hear the truck run before we start assembling everything. So I'll throw y'all on a time lapse probably a little bit. Let's dive right in. Hey, Rick. All right, so this is where we are at. This is basically me at pausing point right now. Got the whole front end peeled off. Took and pulled these bars out just a little bit. We're not trying to straighten them. You're just trying to relieve a little bit of the crunch, I guess you can say, so you can just check wires and lines and all that stuff. We're gonna come in, I'm pretty sure, over there has no damage, and basically cut it like that, and then I'll probably, you know, butt weld this crossbar up to it. That way from there over and all the way up to there is all new. So we'll put in this whole new section versus doing the whole entire front end. You could do the whole front end if you want, but to do these rails right here the quote-unquote correct way, I believe I've seen somewhere that they're pretty complicated. A dash has to come out because they pass through like the inside of the vehicle or something. I would never in a million years do anything like that. So just like building race cars, we're gonna cut it and then we will butt weld it. You know, we just got to get these straight right here because we're not going to take these sections off, and that will allow us to come in here and get this buckle out right here. So basically what we'll do is we'll grab these from over here and we'll pull these out to get our cowl panel back right, and we'll measure probably from this fender hole over to that one on this truck, and then on our parts truck to make sure our spread is correct. That way we make sure our hood hinge is located in the correct, you know, area, because your hood hinge is going to move obviously with the top of this metal right here. So we don't want to undo all of that, mess with spot welds and disturb all that stuff. We literally just want to pull this back out, get that buckle out of it, and make sure our hood hinge is sitting in the correct location left to right, and make sure this first bolt is the correct location left to right. We're going to cut obviously somewhere in here in front of this bolt to tie it back together. It goes together right here. I know on my 450 I think my cuts were more up here when we did my 450, the black one on this. I don't think we did it on this channel. It was before I had the channel, but when we did the 450, that's how we did it, and it turned out really good. But this one, the slinkiness is a little farther back, and unfortunately that gets into the plate. So you do have this plate right here, so I haven't decided 100% what I'm going to do yet with this. If I want to come in here and drill these spot welds out to relieve this. I really not a fan of drilling spot welds. I'm a big fan of butt welding, even though it's the wrong way if you're doing it technically, but I don't care. So I don't know 100%, like I said, what I'm going to do yet with that. I'll kind of keep thinking on that and figure out how I want to tie this corner back in. That's going to be good, where I can get a weld all the way around it and I don't have to worry about nothing, you know, because I do want it back strong. I don't want a weak, you know, point. So we just got to get that out. Besides that, I have no surprises. I do want to get this thing running and off the frame rack probably, or where it can back off the frame rack because of all this mud. So you can see that this thing is just covered in clay and dirt. So while this front end is apart, we want to make sure that we purple power and power wash all in here. Obviously you'll cover up your intake. The only surprise that I have is the ABS module, and it's not really a surprise. It was in the point of impact. It was just I literally didn't think about it. So I thought about hoses and lines and all that stuff, but I didn't think about the ABS module. It didn't even dawn on me that it's sitting there actually. But it's not a big deal because we have everything on the parts truck. It took the brake booster, or the brake, yeah, it's the brake booster back there. So the master cylinder at the top, it took it slam off, but that's just plastic with these dowel pins. So we'll swap the other container over with that, and then probably we'll re-bleed our brakes when we're done. Besides that, let's knock that out. Looks like we can just push that back in. Besides that, there's no real surprises. You know, all these little brake lines like this are just kind of pushed back and tweaked. That line is pretty easy. Goes from right there down to there, and it's also bent right there. So we'll go ahead and, of course, undo this line, replace that. And I actually think I have one of these off of the 5.0 Coyote truck that my my race motor come out of, the one that we have now. We did not do that on the channel. That's before the channel, but I've already done this once, just pulled a motor out, and that's what TKM is building now. But we'll definitely go ahead and do that line and this line probably, because this line is big and it looks like it's got bent there. So they're very easy to unscrew right here. So being they're easy to do, we'll go ahead and do them. We're not gonna mess with all these little lines because they go back there. So what we'll do is we'll probably take the frame rack, well, no, maybe it won't, and we'll probably pull this back in place. We need to get our mount back secure, and then I think all of this will be good. So it looks like our wiring is perfectly fine. The end of the cap is busted, but it does not look like any wiring is pinched or anything, so we're not going to be messing with the harness. So one thing that I was concerned about is that the harness would have got pinched in the accident and that I would have to do a harness, but it literally looks like the harness survived untouched. I had one pigtail right here, a little wire broke on this, so this looks like your mass airflow sensor. So we'll have to snip this off the other truck, unfortunately, and put that pigtail on, and then we'll have to note that because I always part out and sell the other wires on eBay, the harnesses, so it'll get noted on eBay that the mass airflow sensor pigtail was cut. But besides that, like, there's no surprises. And if that harness unplugged, which it does not, see, that's the bad thing about this one, is it goes up into the cab. You have a plug right here that goes down under the truck, but the rest of it plugs into the cab. So it's kind of stupid that Ford put two right here, but then nothing right here, and instead they ran this one all the way into the cab, and I can't remember how complicated that was to get out, but there's no reason to do unneeded work in this business. I've already filled up a trash can, so if the wiring's fine, we just need to clean it up, tuck it up, put it back nice and neat, you know, and let it be. So I'm gonna go through now and see what, go grab some stuff off the parts truck, maybe the intake, so that I can get the mass airflow sensor back in there so the truck will read that, and maybe try to fire this thing. I might try to fire it actually without the mass airflow sensor. I don't know if it'll even fire up. It should, but I don't know. This piece right here was broke. Of course, it's plastic. It just, you know, just breaks in the wreck, but we'll take that off right there, and then that line up there, get that out. So no big surprises so far. Looks exactly like I honestly expected that it probably would. We're gonna keep diving in, keep combing through. Basically, as we make progress on this one, I'll kind of update y'all instead of boring y'all too much. So it runs, but then it cuts right off, but it sounded good. Oh, yeah, so it dies right off. So it's probably just everything we've got unplugged. It's probably just, you know, something's kicking it out, but I mean, it runs good, so it's not like it's got a knock or anything. I'll try to prime it a few times. Yeah, so it's gonna be just something that we've got unplugged under here that's causing it to just not run. So it is day 2. Messed with it for a little bit yesterday afternoon. Pulled this over this morning, and besides that, I've been messing with a Jetta that's over there, misfire issue. Decided to get back on this little guy and having some stuff that's not right with the throttle position sensor. So Ed was unplugging the mass airflow and checking and looking at some other stuff, seeing if it would go back to default, but we didn't have no luck. So I'm gonna go through here now, ohm out all the fuses, make sure we don't have no pop fuses before we move on, and possibly rule as a engine harness right here with a broke wire inside of it, even though I don't see no damage. So start with the fuses, because all my codes are related to, are pointing at this throttle body. And whenever it's trying to run, like, it'll fire off for a couple seconds and install, and when it's trying to run and I hit the gas, it's not opening and closing the blade. It is drive-by-wire throttle body, so it should be moving the blade with the pedal, but it's not doing that. So all of the codes that we had, a lot of them were throttle body codes and everything. So we had one fuse that was popped here, and then we had a 60, a 20, and a 30 that was popped. So that took care of throttle body codes, but now all of our codes are pointing towards fuel pump codes. Now, your fuel pump wiring on these F-150s do run in this wiring harness that's over here. So I started looking a little closer and inspecting it a little, you know, tighter, running down actually every single thing. And if we come in here, see right here, there's some guys right there, okay, that are busted. So we're gonna go ahead and just crimp these together, make sure none of these other ones are busted. Like I said, if we need to replace this harness, we can, but if we're only dealing with them 3 or 4 that are busted, then hopefully some little wire crimps will fix that issue and we won't have to untangle this whole harness. So let's get this crimped and see if this thing will actually run. So after inspecting even farther, we have even more issues. So as you can see up inside here, camera don't really want to focus, but we have a lot of cut wires and wires that are pinched. I mean, I don't even know how this thing is even turning over, but there is a lot of broken wires in this bundle. So I think we are going to move forward now with looking into the possibilities of swapping out this main wiring harness, because there could be more broken wires, and quite frankly, this is a lot of little wires, if you can see up in here, to put back together, and some of the colors literally match and literally are the same, so this could turn into a nightmare fast. So let's see what we got to do to get this out. All right, let's see here. I think I might have it. Look at that. So she runs a little rough, and I still got a handful of error codes, but I decided to go ahead and splice up the wiring harness because changing it out was going to be an absolute nightmare. So it's easier to splice the dozen or so wires that were cut. But she's running. I still have 2 busted plugs on this side and 4 cut wires. So I have an absolute nightmare of wiring going on here. All of these reds are splices, but I have 4 wires right here that are cut that do not have a mate on this side. But then we have this plug that is busted, this plug that is completely missing the ends to it, and then we also have the wire off of, I believe this is going to be your air temperature sensor. So we need to cut this pigtail off the parts truck and put that on. The ground is ripped on this side, so that's why I used the jumper cable. But we got it running. It runs, it idles good, doesn't tick, doesn't knock, sounds good. It's just got error codes really still, so I can't, it's getting too late tonight. Can't really go out there and chase the parts truck tonight to find where them sensors go, because it's dark, and to get to some of them sensors, they're under the coolant reservoir and all of that stuff. And actually that's probably going to be one of the sensors, is going to be the coolant temp or coolant level. So we'll do that tomorrow. We'll start breaking the parts truck down tomorrow, take care of the wiring. I want to get this thing running smooth, no error codes, before we start putting this front end together, because it's way easier to mess with this wiring now than it would be after the whole entire front end together. To change that front harness, it goes in on the passenger side, up under the dash, into the fuse block, and then on the driver side, it goes through the firewall, into the dash, and it actually branches out into little wires all up into the dash. So for some reason, whatever engineer designed this, decided on 2 of the main harnesses that go on the driver's side, they put plugs, but the third one, which is about the same size, it does not have a plug going to the firewall. So to change this front harness, you're pulling the dash out, or you're snaking your hands way up inside the dash. I remember when I took it off the last parts truck that I had, it was a nightmare. And so at that point, I decided, you know what, let's just try it. Before we just give up on this harness, let's take our time, match all the wires up. You could pretty much kind of tell where they were cut from the way they were inside the bundle where they went for the color coding. And everything I feel like went smooth. I just got to finish getting these error codes out, but I can't say that it's an electrical issue or anything like that, or anything on my end, until I have all the wires back connected and then see what happens. So we'll get on it tomorrow morning and finish connecting all the wires on this thing. But at least it's good to know that she runs smooth, idles good. We just got error codes, and hopefully these last 2 busted sensors or 2 busted plugs, 4 cut wires, hopefully once we trace them down and connect where they go, that we'll be good to go. So that's going to be a wrap for tonight. Catch y'all on the next one.